Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into skin in the game today. It's a concept that reaches way beyond just financial risk. And we have some fascinating material from you all, especially those writings from Nassim Taleb, and we're going to really kind of unpack those and see where it all connects.
It really is interesting how this concept pops up like everywhere. You see it in ancient law, modern finance. We'll be looking at how it impacts individual decisions, entire systems, how we see the world even.
Okay, so first, can we just clarify, what exactly is skin in the game, beyond just like losing money?
It boils down to accountability, making sure your actions line up with consequences. Justice, honor, sacrifice, all wrapped up in it. Taleb points out all these areas where skin in the game, it's like a correction, separating action from talk, practice from theory, true expertise versus just appearances.
Like, think of those warrior kings, right? Leading their armies, risking their own lives on the front line. Responsibility and power totally linked.
Exactly, but modern society, it often disconnects those things, actions and consequences, and you get all these weird incentives, this moral hazard thing.
Oh, which reminds me, the Bob Rubin trade really caught my eye. Can you explain that one?
Sure. So Robert Rubin, former Treasury Secretary, made a ton of money, over $120 million, from Citibank before, well, the 2008 crisis. Then, when the bank needed that taxpayer bailout, he personally didn't lose a dime.
He profited from the risky bets, but then the losses, those got passed on to everyone else, like us, the taxpayers.
Exactly. Stuff like that, it erodes trust, right, in free markets.
Yeah.
When it seems like bailouts and governments are just protecting the powerful from their own bad choices.
So has this idea of symmetry, accountability always been so out of whack?
Well, it's been a journey. Taleb traces this evolution of ethical principles from Hammurabi's code, that very strict eye for an eye,
Yeah, very literal.
right, to the silver rule, which is like, don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you. Taleb argues that it's actually stronger than the golden rule.
Stronger, how so?
It's about minding your own business, not forcing your idea of good on other people. What not to do is often clearer than knowing exactly what will help them.
Less about imposing your values, I get it. How far does this symmetry thing go?
All the way to international relations. The Athenian orator Isocrates, he argued that nations should treat each other according to the silver rule. Deal with weaker states, he said, as you'd want stronger ones to deal with you.
It seems like this skin in the game thing, it's a good way to spot certain types of people, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It helps you see the fools, the ones taking risks they don't even get, and the crooks who shift the risk onto others.
So if someone's giving advice but they have nothing to lose if it's bad advice, red flag.
Big time. Think about certain financial advisors, consultants. They get paid whether their advice works or not. Their interests and yours not always aligned.
Classic agency problem.
Right. It's not just about avoiding bad guys either. Even good people, if they have no skin in the game, they can really mess things up without meaning to.
Because reality sorts things out, right?
Oh,
Those who don't get the risks, well, they don't last.
Exactly. Actions reveal true preferences more than words ever can.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How does all this connect to, like, modern intellectualism?
Well, Taleb says modern intellectualism can create this disconnect between action and consequence, theory and practice. And then you get these complex systems, very fragile, prone to collapse because they lack feedback.
Real-world examples.
Think of super complicated regulations that kill innovation, or the gap between, like, academics and people who actually do the work.
That theory-practice gap.
Yeah.
Like trying to learn to swim from a book.
Perfect analogy. You got to get in the water, experience it to develop those instincts, the skills.
Speaking of which, Taleb talks about the Lindy effect. What's that all about?
Basically, time is the judge. Anything that survived for a really long time, well, it's probably going to keep surviving. It's had skin in the game of, like, existence itself.
Like classic books or those old family recipes? They've stood the test of time.
Yep. Think Broadway shows, too. If one runs for 100 days, good chance it'll run another 100. 200 days, probably another 200.
Survival of the fittest, but for ideas, institutions.
Right. True expertise, it's often found in those who have that track record, not just the ones who look the part.
Okay, so how do I pick a surgeon then?
Imagine two surgeons. One perfectly fits the image, right? Polished, articulate, Ivy League diplomas all over the place.
The other one, not so much.
But think about it. The one who doesn't fit the mold, they probably had to overcome a lot of bias to get where they are. Their skill had to speak for itself.
Looks can be deceiving, especially in fields where image matters more than results.
Exactly. which leads us to Taleb's minority rule.
Let's dig into that. What is it and how does it work?
It says that a small but determined minority can influence the majority's behavior in a big way.
Got any examples?
Kosher food, how airlines handle peanut allergies, non-GMO foods, even which languages dominate, the minority rule at work.
So how does this play out in real life?
Let's say you are organizing a big event. Instead of asking everyone about their dietary restrictions, you cater to the most stringent one, like providing kosher or peanut-free options to include everyone.
A small group's preferences end up dictating the choices for everyone.
You got it. This concept has huge implications for understanding social changes, how culture evolves, power dynamics too.
As we wrap up this first part of our deep dive into skin in the game, let's touch on virtue. How do they connect?
Well, real virtue, it means taking risks, acting for the good of everyone, even when it goes against your own self-interest.
So not just about feeling virtuous or showing off good intentions.
Right. It requires actual sacrifice for a greater cause,
Yeah.
like whistleblowers risking their careers, people speaking up for unpopular truths, even when it costs them socially.
That really challenges the idea of virtue signaling. All
Yeah.
talk, no real commitment.
For sure, true virtue. You're got to put something meaningful on the line. You need skin in the game. We'll be back after a quick break with more insights into this concept.
It often feels like those quiet acts of courage, those sacrifices, matter more than any big pronouncements. All right, let's talk about how we see the world. Taleb says we tend to focus on these huge events, wars, conflicts, but we kind of ignore the long stretches of peace, of cooperation. How does that connect to skin in the game?
Well, it makes us misunderstand risk. We think conflict's more likely than it is. We underestimate how much peace there really is.
Like watching a basketball game, but only seeing the highlight reel. Slam dunks, crazy plays, but none of the practice, the teamwork that goes into it.
Perfect analogy. And then we get this distorted view of history, of how people act.
Taleb talks about silent facts, right? Those things that don't happen, but they tell us a lot about how systems work.
Yeah.
What does he mean?
Think of all the everyday stuff that goes right. People working together, buying and selling, settling disagreements peacefully. Those are silent facts.
But we don't see those on the news.
Nope. And that's why it's important we have to be careful not to build our whole worldview on just the dramatic, the sensationalized stuff.
Okay, last concept for today, ergodicity. This one's kind of tough. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. It's about getting the difference between ensemble probabilities and time probabilities.
Ensemble probabilities being.
The odds of something happening across a big group, a population, like average lifespan of a species or how many people win the lottery.
And time probabilities are.
The chances of something happening to one specific person over their lifetime, like getting struck by lightning, for example.
So why does it matter if we mix those two up?
Well, you can make really bad decisions, especially about risk. Taleb has this saying, never cross a river if it's, on average, 4 feet deep.
Because even if the average is safe, there could be a deep spot that, well,
Exactly, ruin. It's not something you can just bounce back from. Like if you go bankrupt, you can't just start over fresh.
so for investing then.
Imagine an investment that gives great returns most of the time, but has a tiny chance of wiping you out completely. For a whole bunch of people, it might look good.
But for one individual,
Disaster. Because once you're ruined, game over. No more playing the odds.
this really makes you think about risk over time, not just averages.
Absolutely. Crucial in a world full of statistics, forecasts, all that.
Wow, we covered so much ground today.
Yeah.
Can we try to recap the key takeaways from our skin in the game deep dive?
Of course. So first, skin in the game, it's more than money. It's about accountability, justice, honor, making sure actions and consequences are linked.
Bridging the gap between words and deeds.
Exactly. Second, asymmetry is everywhere. Look out for situations where someone's getting the rewards, but someone else is taking the risk.
Like that Bob Rubin trade.
Right. Third takeaway, time is the judge. Things that have lasted a long time, they probably have something going for them.
The Lindy effect.
You got it. Fourth, appearances can be misleading. True expertise, it doesn't always look how we expect.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Or a surgeon, I guess.
Right. Fifth, minorities have a lot of power. A small group, if they're determined, can really influence everyone else.
Kosher food, peanuts on planes, all those examples.
Yep. Sixth, true virtue, it takes risk, sacrifice. It's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk.
Doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
Exactly. Seventh, our view of history, it's often skewed. We focus on the big, dramatic stuff and miss the silent facts that show how resilient things really are.
Don't get caught up in the highlights.
Right. Eighth, Ergodicity. Understanding that difference between probabilities for groups and for individuals over time, really important.
Never cross a river if it's on average 4 feet deep.
Good one. Ninth takeaway, watch out for intellectualism that's out of touch with reality.
Theory without action, it's like a car without an engine.
Nice. And finally, rationality is all about survival. Don't make decisions that make it impossible to recover if things go wrong.
Don't bet it all on one hand.
Exactly. We've seen how skin in the game works in so many areas. Finance, ethics, history, even religion. What stands out to you? Did this change how you see things, either about the world or about your own choices?
This whole asymmetry thing, it really hit home. It's so easy to miss those situations where incentives are messed up, people doing things that put others at risk but not themselves. That's something I'll definitely be watching out for.
Absolutely. Which brings to mind this idea of the intellectual yet idiot. They found smart, but they don't have any skin in the game.
So they can say whatever they want, but if their ideas are wrong, it's no big deal to them.
Right. They're often insulated, protected from the consequences that make most people learn from their mistakes and adapt.
Like that saying, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is.
For sure. In this complex world, we need to use skin in the game as a lens to evaluate information, figure out who the real experts are, and make good decisions.
It forces you to think critically, challenge assumptions, and remember that actions always speak louder than words.
And remember, this is just the beginning. There's always more to learn, more connections to make.
Maybe this got you thinking. Raise some questions. That's what skin in the game is all about. Thinking for yourself, engaging with the world in a thoughtful way.
It's about understanding how risk, responsibility, and how our actions affect each other are all intertwined. These ideas, they matter for everyone, no matter who you are or what you do.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into skin in the game.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and look for those who have skin in the game.
And, as promised, here's that quick 10-point summary of our skin in the game deep dive. Number 1, skin in the game. It's more than just financial risk. It's about accountability, aligning actions with consequences.
Number 2, asymmetry is everywhere. Be careful in situations where someone else is taking the risk while someone else is getting the rewards.
Number 3, time is the ultimate test. The Lindy effect suggests that anything that's lasted a long time probably has some value.
Number 4, appearances can be deceiving. True expertise might not look how we expect.
Number 5, minorities hold a lot of power. Their preferences can shape the majority's behavior.
Number 6, true virtue requires risk and sacrifice. It's not just about good intentions, it's about concrete actions.
Number 7, our perception of history can be distorted. We might overemphasize the big events and miss the silent facts that show how resilient we really are.
Number 8, understanding ergodicity is crucial. Knowing the difference between probabilities for groups versus individuals over time, it's really important, especially when you're assessing risk.
Number 9, be wary of intellectualism that's disconnected from real-world experience. Theory without action is just empty.
And number 10, rationality is all about survival. Don't make choices that make it impossible to recover if things go wrong.
We hope this summary is useful for you and that it helps you explore these ideas even further. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep looking for those with skin in the game.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck in their own world, you know? No real consequences to make them learn and change.
In theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. Something like that.
Exactly. Look, in a world this complex, skin in the game, it's a tool to see through the noise, find the real experts, make better choices.
It really pushes you to think for yourself, not just take things at face value, actions over words. Always.
And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. So much more to explore here.
This has probably gotten everyone thinking, got questions brewing. Which I think is the point, isn't it? Skin in the game, it's about engaging with the world, really thinking things through.
At the core, it's about risk, responsibility, and how interconnected everything is. It matters for all of us, no matter what we do.
Well, a huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive into skin in the game.
Until we meet again, stay curious, keep learning, and surround yourselves with those who have skin in the game.
And don't forget, here's that 10-point summary we promised. The highlights from our skin in the game deep dive. Number 1, skin in the game is more than just financial risk. It's about accountability, making sure actions and consequences line up.
Number 2, asymmetry. It's all over the place. Watch out for those situations where someone else is taking the risk while someone else is reaping the rewards.
Number 3, the ultimate test, it's time. The Lindy effect, remember. If something's lasted a long time, it probably has value.
Number 4, never judge a book by its cover. True expertise often doesn't look the way we think it should.
Number 5, minorities can have a huge impact. Their preferences can actually shape how the majority acts.
Number 6, real virtue. It means taking risks and making sacrifices. It's not just about good intentions, it's about taking real action.
Number 7, we got to be careful about how we see history. We tend to focus on the big, exciting events and miss those silent facts that show just how resilient things can be.
Number 8, understanding ergodicity, it's T. Knowing the difference between probabilities for groups versus individuals over time, that's essential for making good decisions, especially about risk.
Number 9, watch out for those intellectuals who are out of touch with the real world. Theory without action. It's pretty useless.
And last but not least, number 10, rationality is all about survival. Don't make decisions that'll wipe you out if things go south. Leave yourself room to recover.
We hope this recap helps. And more importantly, that it inspires you to keep exploring these ideas. Until next time, keep those questions coming, never stop learning, and remember, always seek out those who have skin in the game.